Marker.
Jeff played the intro. We're going to start in 3, 2. I forgot. Mark, I forgot that stupid greeting that I came up with. Is it good morning?
Good afternoon.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and wherever you are. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Okay.
Yeah.
5, 4. Welcome to DisneySpace, reimagining spaces in Walt Disney World, Disneyland, and spaces beyond. And now, your host, Jeff and Mark. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and wherever you are, thanks for listening to DisneySpace. I'm your host, Jeff, and with me, as always, my co-host, Mark.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
Okay, only one of us gets to do the bit. Mark, we had been pretty diligent on a weekly delivery of this podcast, and then I decided to go on a Disney vacation last week, so it somewhat disrupted the normal course of affairs, but I'd like to get this ship right and back on its normal distribution schedule.
Yeah, it'll be good to take a break every once in a while for that purpose, and I want to hear all about it.
Yeah, so let's just take a few moments, and I'll maybe you have some questions, and I'll just recap what we were up to. Is the first time in almost a year and 10 months, I actually took some time off of work and took a 3-night stay at the Contemporary Resort at Walt Disney World. I'd never stayed
Very
there
nice.
before. Oh, it was incredible, an incredible experience. Wasn't cheap, didn't get any deals, but it was really worth the experience. And I could actually see now why some fans, like my friend Justin, he'll do a lot of split stays where he'll go and do 1 or 2 nights at a luxury high-end resort and then do 3 or 4 days at maybe one of the Pops or Art Animation or something like that, because you want to get a little taste of it. And then, okay, now we can just focus on the park experience.
Yeah, let's do the $700 one and then the $300 one later.
Yeah, and that's the $300 is the Disney definition of budget. But the remodeled lobby, and they're still doing work in the towers, and you can see that they have a lot of orange, I don't want to call them blankets, but work coverings in a lot of the areas. We actually stayed in I was going to say one of the 2 garden wings, but one of those garden wings doesn't exist anymore because it's now Bay Lake Towers. And we loved it. We had a perfect view of the monorail. It went by consistently, and that was just really great to see. Very clean, comfortable room, very nice. We had some of the best night's sleep we've had in a long time. It's probably because we didn't have 2 kitty cats jumping on the bed in the middle of the night, but
that's great. Very nice.
And I get to go with my friend Michael and his family. He invited us on a VIP tour last Thursday, and we were able to conquer everything in Hollywood Studios, Epcot, and then we even bowed out after the 6-hour mark, and he went on to finish everything in Animal Kingdom and then ended at Magic Kingdom and had a perfect spot for the fireworks. And I got to tell you, that is such an insane experience to move around those parks at a breakneck pace. And we did Rise of the Resistance twice. We did Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run twice, Slinky Dog Dash twice. We did Midway Mania, Runaway Railway. We did that one twice. I mean, it was just Tower of Terror. We did that one 2 times. It was so, they move you so frantically.
My goodness. Did you count your steps through all that?
According to my Apple Watch, I got 13 miles in that day.
There's your half marathon. Good job.
Hey, not bad, right?
Grab your medal.
But it was a really great experience. And tomorrow I'm headed back to the Magic Kingdom. Going to wake up early, maybe do some live streaming. I always say I will, and lately I haven't been doing as much.
Where do we go to check in to look at your live streams?
Oh, at WDW Scope on Twitter. I've never been fond of YouTube, its interface, and its algorithms. So I'm like, hey, back when people were really cooking, I was America's 21st favorite Walt Disney World vlog compared to even some of the big YouTubers. So that's not too bad, considering I was on a sort of secondary live streaming app, Periscope. They closed that down what was that, earlier this year? Yeah, it was March of this year. And now I'm regulated to just using my Twitter account for it, which doesn't give the map, doesn't have as good of notification system, is more about instant communication than live streaming. But there's other platforms out there. There's I think Rumble and
Instagram,
Instagram. I don't
Facebook.
like because you can only do portrait mode. You can't go landscape.
Okay.
Instagram is all about selfie mode, and when we do it, that's why we liked Periscope, is because it is a Periscope view of wherever we are, and I love turning it landscape, really letting people capture the sights, the sounds of the parks, and also interact with them in a fun way.
Yeah, if anybody follows Jeff at WDW Scope on Twitter, make sure to turn on that bell so you'll get the notification. I do that, and so when he appears at the park, I just dive right on in. I'll be working and just watch what he does.
Hey, it's
With
a lot
no
of fun, and yeah,
yeah,
and you can watch. You don't have to chat, but it's always nice to hear from folks.
right.
Um, but yeah, it's a good time. But also, we're going to take a little bit of a break from the typical Disney Space format. And here on Disney Space, where we reimagine spaces at Walt Disney World, at Disneyland, and Spaces Beyond, typically we will pick a location. For example, this week's location is the now defunct NBA Experience at Disney Springs. And what we do is we both come up with our own individual pitches to each other of what we would reimagine in a given space. Our track record so far, we've bulldozed It's a Small World. We've welcomed people into Tomorrowland and given them a fun Muppet Star Wars experience. And you made Fort Wilderness almost an Olympic athlete destination. I wanted to turn it into a Simpsons sideshow. But we've had some fun in doing this. And today we're going to have an opportunity to speak to someone who did this professionally.
Yeah, we're going to talk to a former consultant for Imagineering. His name is Joel Christopher Payne. This guy is very, very creative. I really advise that you follow him on Facebook. That's where he does most of his work. And he's an assorted, creative person. He does a lot of things. What he does primarily today, he's a painter. He's a professional painter, professional artist. He's a licensed Disney artist, so he's allowed to paint all the Mickeys and Minnies and Goofies and Donalds. But he does a lot of highly, highly detailed landscape, almost very Thomas Kincaid looking art. It takes him days to do each piece, and he's been doing that for many, many years. Just beautiful, beautiful work. Recently, he was showcased at the Epcot Festival of the Arts. He had a kiosk there, and he was watercoloring, doing some things.
I
And
know I saw that kiosk.
yeah,
I'm sure I did.
yeah, he's done some other things. He's invented some toys for kids to do some really purposeful thing for helping them learn and helping them grow. And he's done some apps for that. He's done a lot of gaming development, so he's done a lot of art for well-known titles. And recently, he is going to be starring in a movie. I believe it's called The Elf King. I'll let him talk about all this. And he's created a song that is now on all the music services. So anything that he's willing to go out there and try, he does it and does it in a big way. So we're going to welcome him. And one reason we brought him on the show today is if anybody has been to DisneyQuest in the past and experienced the virtual jungle cruise, Joel developed this attraction. And so he has a whole story behind this. And then he'd like to tell that. And I thought it would be good for him to come in and make his pitch for what could be done with this space, because he's very good at that. And I think
He's literally worked in this space before. Yeah, so he's going to have some insight. He's going to blow us out of the water and say, "You amateurs have no idea what you're doing. Here's how we really do it." No, but I'm really excited. So we're going to have that segment coming up right now.
All right, we have Joel Christopher Payne with us today, and thank you very much, Joel, for joining us. He's going to help us with some concepting of DisneyQuest, and he has a little bit of history behind the attraction. Joel, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thanks guys for having me on. I'm really excited about doing this. When you told me about your show idea, I thought it was brilliant, and I'm going to have a lot of fun today.
I agree. Yeah. So you've got a lot of creative background throughout your entire career, and it's inspired me ever since I've gotten to know you. I've encouraged people to search your Facebook and see everything that you do. And recently, you've been to Epcot for the first time and did the Festival of the Arts and got
That's
to learn the
correct.
place. Yeah. So,
Yeah, my first time out there in my whole
yeah.
life.
So tell
Quite
us a
an
little bit
experience.
about your background.
Well, I didn't really find myself wanting to be a painter, especially doing fine art. That was not on the docket there. But I did my first painting in high school in my senior year. I could have taken Spanish or art. And, I probably should have taken Spanish. But no, I did. My first painting was a Pinocchio painting. And it was pretty good, actually. And the teacher said, "Oh, it looks like you got a future in art." I'd fallen in love with Disney, mostly the Imagineers when I was a kid. If people go to wishpictures.com, they could see my bio and hear about that story where I was on Pirates of the Caribbean as a 5-year-old. It's a fun story. And it just really kind of blew my mind how Walt was able to blur the line between fantasy and reality. And I just thought it was a fascinating career choice. And I always wanted to be an Imagineer. But as luck would have it, I went into the movie business for a little while and doing props and set painting and costume design. My first job was working at Somewhere in Time on Colorado Boulevard in Pasadena, and got to design the American Gladiators costumes back in the day, if anybody remembers that
Oh,
show.
wow. Yeah.
And and I was making props, these troll heads out of leather and peacock feathers for eyebrows and stuff like that, kind of like what Jim Henson was doing with puppeteering. And we sold these things for quite a bit of money, actually, handcrafted troll heads.
Nice.
And it led to me going into wanting to work in movies and as a director. But as luck would have it, when I saw Jurassic Park come out, realizing where computer technology would be, I was a heavy gamer, really into video games at the time. I had a Amiga and started off on a Commodore, and I was doing a lot of digital artwork at the very beginnings of really computer technology, when there was only 16 colors on the computer.
Yeah, I think we come from the same age there.
Yeah,
I had
yeah, it was
Radio
the
Shack
beginnings of it
TRS-80.
all.
I'm always amazed at classic gaming with the dithering effects and what they could do with the limited number of pixels and colors.
We had
all the stuff. Yeah,
that's why we had 32 colors. Then we went to 64 because we were blending the two.
Yeah.
It was really a cheap trick. And then we got 128, and then eventually we had millions of colors. And as soon as we had all of the colors of the rainbow with tons of resolution to basically replicate a photo if we wanted to, that's when 3D came into the mix. And I had to figure out how to make a head out of like 5 polygons. So we kind of get bombed back to the Stone Age right after achieving all of those triumphant milestones and with colors and resolution. But so I was a part of that whole thing and went into the video game industry as an art director. And that led me to Disney in 1994 when I got to work and was hired to work with the Imagineers on the Virtual Jungle Cruise, which was a massive, massive achievement in location-based entertainment at the time. And we built it on a reality engine the size of a refrigerator. And we called that thing HAL, of course. And now your phone could probably run that entire attraction all the years that it had ran. And it was in operation for many, many years until I think about 2 years ago when DisneyQuest was, they decided to take it down and build something else. And
I think
so
clearly this. So
I think something else is how well it was received.
Yeah.
We had great hopes for it. Tony Baxter was my boss's boss, and we had a lot of hopes for virtual attractions, and I saw all kinds of potential there. And I really thought like I was on the forefront of how rides would eventually go. And unfortunately, they really had a couple of really great ideas and a lot of not so good ones. And it wasn't really well received initially. And it was a time when Dave and Buster's and GameWorks had been competing, and they saw this market that was emerging for dinner entertainment type arcades for the family to go. And Disney wanted to do it a lot better than everybody else, and I think we did with the Virtual Jungle Cruise. It was one of the most popular attractions there, and one of the longest running ones as well.
I agree.
Was that attraction also available at the Chicago location?
We did actually have it at a few different places. I never actually got to ride any of them. We built it in Carlsbad, actually, and in a warehouse, and I got to ride the whole thing during the summer. I mean, not a bad gig if you can get it, right? Having to basically build a ride and ride it all summer long, not a problem for me.
And air conditioning.
And I was responsible for laying out the track, basically, which was the virtual river. So all the little bumps and curves and waterfalls and all that fun stuff, going through the caves, the whirlpools, all that fun stuff, that was me. I got to basically create the ride simulation, and ultimately had to test that. So I called it the possessed airbag, and it was 6 compartment airbags, 6 compartments that would fill up independently to simulate water. And then we would have this really amazing real oar that would have a roller wheel from a rollerblade put into it, so that when we're in the real boat that was strapped onto the top of this giant airbag, it would pick up the signals, the strokes, and people were actually legitimately rowing down a virtual river. And we even went so far as having spritzers of water and caustic lighting. And we had to eventually take out the water because it was creating a mold problem. But we really wanted to go all in on this simulation. And I think we did a really good job. When we had the thing cranked all the way up, people could fly right out of the boat. It was definitely Land of the Lost.
Oh, same here.
It was pretty intense.
Yeah.
I could feel the bumps and the bruises.
Well, it was around that time that they were doing Indiana Jones, the Indiana Jones attraction to Disneyland, and a lot of the same ride designers that built that attraction also built the simulation underneath our attraction, and so they're kind of cousins in a way. And so when I got to be one of the first 100 people on the Indiana Jones attraction when it opened, and when it was opened, opening day, that thing was violent. It was quite a fun ride. They toned it down because it broke a lot and the hydraulics got overheated and everything. But when it was open, first day, it was intense. And
most attractions seem to do that on their first initial runs, and they try to scale it down to reality.
Yeah, I myself, I went on Epcot's Mission Space when the first week it opened, and I went on it with my brother-in-law, who's a police lieutenant, and the two of us both, when we got off of it, he said we would both fail a field sobriety test.
Well, let me just tell you, if you really want to get the full intended experience of a Disney attraction, get on it on the first few days, because they have it all the way turned up. They want a big showing and they want that big crowd reaction, because people are getting talked to by the press as you come out, and they got all the bells and whistles running, and then they dial it back for the general public, in most cases after everybody's figured out where the sickness level is. So
I think we're seeing that with Disney Genie today in Walt Disney World, the reservations app and pay for a ride app. It's had a lot of hiccups in the past couple of days, but you can see its potential.
Well, that's the thing, Disney is an ever evolving concept. That's the way Walt intended it. And it requires a little bit of trial and error when you're on the edge of something new. And so, I appreciate that. You got to be on the bleeding edge of pushing those boundaries to find out where the boundaries lie and where you can break them.
Yeah. So this experience with 3D animation on a screen in front of a person, giving them that virtual type of feel, how did that grow over the years?
Well, it's funny because right after that, after I did that attraction, I was put directly on Oceania, which was a dome projection system, the very world's first immersive dome projection system that was for the Lisbon's World's Fair in 1990, I think it was 8 or 9, 99. And that was also something that I did the fly through on that. And that was really the predecessor that led to Soaring Over California Adventures. We didn't have an actual physical vehicle that you got in, like what they ultimately made with a really cool erector set. as a prototype, which I've actually seen firsthand, being a part of that,
Cool.
the development of that. I've got to see that. And it's one of those things where, that simulation was really the beginnings of a revolution in ride technology. And that led to, right after that, I worked on with Steven Spielberg's vertical reality attraction, which was in GameWorks. It was their crown jewel. And you would get into a chair strapped in. The bar would come over your head, just like you would in a roller coaster, and you'd have a gun attached to the simulation, and you'd have a big 4-story screen in front of you.
Oh, that was the Sky Pirates, right?
That's right. Well, originally it was a gun. Some other contractor had thought it was a brilliant idea to create a skyscraper in front of you where you could see into it and shoot at the bad guy. And if you managed to get the criminal, the robber that was with the pop gun, you would go up a floor. And then the goal would be to get him in the next floor, and then you'd hopefully get to the top and then free fall down. Well, unfortunately, Spielberg hired the wrong team, and it was basically a $5 attraction. Nobody wanted to go on it because nobody could get past the first floor. So when I when I got to work on that, we went out and actually, wanted to create something that was really exciting and take the full advantage of this pogo stick type free fall scenario. And we souped it up, and we came up with the idea of airships, pirate ships of sorts, where you would have a spike on the bottom of it, and you could power up that would launch you up a floor, and then you could dive bomb down with the spike on the bottom of your balloon trying to hit the opponent. And if you got them, then you would free fall. And that really took full advantage of that technology. And I got to write the music for that. I got to game design a little bit, animate, and I built all the visuals for that. So it was me and 2 programmers and a game designer that put that together. And we did it in 6 months' time. And it had lines out the door. We huge success. It finally made back the money that they had put into that idea. But that was Steven Spielberg's actual idea. And I think that was kind of the predecessor to Tower of Terror, which ultimately did the same thing, but in a bigger way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you were in Animal Kingdom, did you experience the Flight of Passage?
Well, that's the funny thing is, I this is the first time I'd ever gone this year out to the art festival, and Disney was gracious enough to allow me to visit all the other parks. I didn't have a lot of time because I was on deck painting live most of the day, but I did have a few hours to hop on over to the other parks, and I went to the Animal Kingdom, and it just blew my mind. I mean, the flight, I mean, I was pretty much crying through the whole thing because, it's basically what we were doing all those years ago, but better. It's kind of like my baby's all grown up, and it really got to me. It showed that we could do something that was really dynamic and really felt like you're on the back of this thing. And, I think that's the future of ride simulation. I think that's the way to go.
Yeah, if you listen to our first show, we had a concept of tearing out everything out of the It's a Small World building, and I had the idea of putting kind of a Maleficent type of similar attraction in there. Same setup, where you're basically you're becoming the spirit of Maleficent flying through this magical kingdom. That type of apparatus could be applied to all kinds of different experiences. Well,
you're actually, there's one project that was right before ours that kind of alludes to that, which was at the DisneyQuest, I believe. And that was the magic carpet, Aladdin's magic carpet.
That's right.
Where you put on a VR headset and it would kind of make you feel like you're on the carpet. Now, our lead animator that did all of our awesome animations and stuff like that on the virtual Jungle Cruise worked on that project and headed it up. I kind of think that's one of the reasons why we were able to get this other Disney attraction, because we had a history of doing that. And Angel Studios, which is the company that actually built it, has a history in virtual entertainment. They were the guys that did a lot of the effects in Lawnmower Man, which was totally foreshadowing what they would ultimately do for real. And that was Diego Angel's company, and a brilliant man that was really on the cutting edge of everything. And so I was definitely a part of history because of that guy and his amazing company and that awesome team that I worked with. There was I think we had about 20 people on the virtual Jungle Cruise project. It was a pretty big team at the time for what it was. And it's just kind of nice to see where this is all kind of led. And I think it can go much further. And I think that's what we're going to talk about today is, where can we go from here?
Yeah.
How do we create the holodeck for real?
Yeah.
Well, you say the holodeck for real, and I also have another question after this. But before we go on that, at Epcot right now, they have a room in a building used to be called the Odyssey Building, and inside of it, it's a preview for what's to come at Epcot, and it uses projections, and you're in a 360-degree projected theater room. And to me, it reminds me of when I saw the behind the scenes specials of The Mandalorian and how they use a similar process to create a digital background and then film that or digitally record that. And I think of that. But what are some of I have a psychology background, and what are some of the psychological things and approaches you have to make when you're simulating movement? I mean, are you worried about maybe causing nausea or a disconnect between what the brain sees and what it feels?
Ooh, now you hit me in the gut. And I will tell you the truth. I will tell you the truth on that, because that is a big, big deal. I was slated to go to Lisbon, and this is, as a young man, this is the first time I was going to be outside of the country. And so it was a big deal for me. I got my passport for the first time, and I was just staring at it thinking, I'm going to Lisbon's the World's Fair, just like Walt did. I mean, he went to the World's Fair. I get to relive Walt's life. But I wasn't allowed to go. Why? Because this big, massive dome projection system, again, not having a ride vehicle associated with it, where there was just a linoleum floor and a bar that you would hold on to, as your peripheral vision was completely obscured by this half dome, this ultimate IMAX. People got very, very sick. And the reason why, and it forced me to stay back, and I had to figure out the simulation and figure out how fast we can go, how much we could bank. And boy, we were really, really having to pull back, way back, as to where we thought people can handle. Because here's the reason why that happens. And it happens on just about all, and this is why even still to this day, even with PlayStation VR and all these amazing glasses, there's still some latency problems. So anytime your inner ear doesn't match up with what you're seeing, your brain is going to have problems. And some people can't, no matter how good the simulation is, no matter if there's no latency, if you're standing there, but you got the headset on and you're seeing something moving, but you're not moving, your body knows. Your body knows, and it rejects it. And so, that's why having a ride vehicle like a Dragon underneath you, or what Soaring Over California Adventures ultimately does, where you're in this vehicle that has up and down movement, it takes away a lot of those problems. But even in those really well done simulations, you still want to kind of look away. Some people have inner ear problems and they can't handle those types of attractions, especially at Universal Studios, which I was just at on Monday. It was most of because of the limited space, they went 100% virtual on their motion-based attractions, and there's a lot of attractions there. And most of them are things that my wife just can't handle. She didn't go with me because they just make her nauseous. So that's a big hurdle to overcome. But I've got the solution to that.
Oh.
Yeah, I've got the solution.
Is it proprietary or?
No, we're going to talk about it on your awesome show.
Awesome.
Yeah. Cool. We're going to talk about that. I'm going to
secret
reveal. I'm going to pull back the curtain like Wizard of Oz, and we're going to talk about how we could do this for real and kind of advance and put this down in writing. Put it actually as a benchmark and make some history right now. I'm going to explain how you could do the holodeck.
All right. So Jeff, do you want to give a brief explanation of what DisneyQuest was for our listeners? Some who may have not experienced it or understood what it was.
Sure. Well, I think Joel hit on the high points in terms of what they were looking at. In terms of there was famously Showbiz Pizza and Chuck E. Cheese, and then Dave and Buster's for more of the young adult crowd as well. And I do believe Disney was looking to not franchise, but to build several DisneyQuest locations across the country. I actually had a chance to go to the one in Chicago in the late 90s.
I did go there myself one day.
Did you as well?
Okay. I do remember I remember that location. We did have a Chicago location, and that was a big location
and that
for
was
us.
Prime real estate. It was that's amazing, and it was such a and not to denigrate it, but it was almost the exact experience that I remembered back home, which it makes sense. If you're going to go to a Dave and Buster's in Fort Worth or in Flagstaff, they're going to be similar. You know, it's what they offer. But it was at the time it was called Downtown Disney, now Disney Springs,
on the west side.
On the west side, which was the expansion built after the Pleasure Island expansion. It was nestled between the Cirque du Soleil theater that was purpose built there and Mr. Aykroyd's House of Blues, which is, by the way, one of the best concert venues in Central Florida. Every act I've seen there, it's a perfectly acoustically built theater, and I just love going to that House of Blues. And that's going to be part of what I want to bring up later, Mark.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, DisneyQuest was this massive, I think 4 or 5 story structure filled with games. It had arcade games as well as these purpose built, basically Disney theme park level attractions, like he described with the Jungle Cruise and the Aladdin VR. And there was, I think it was a Buzz Lightyear. It was almost more like a bumper cars. You could shoot little cannons out the front of it as well.
Do you know what the #1 attraction was? Because I do.
Cyberspace Mountain?
The Cheesecake Factory.
Yes, it was a make your own roller coaster experience. And I ultimately went to go right after I worked for Angel. I went to Foundation Imaging for a little while, worked on Max Steel and Starship Troopers there in the TV world. But then ultimately right after that company unfortunately had a catastrophic run-in with Sony and closed. They pretty much threw them under the bus, and that company closed. And that does happen in that industry. And it was really tough. We had a lot of people in that company, and I'd only been there for about 6 months, and I just arrived having a great time in the TV business. But then I ultimately went to go work as the company art director for Zombie Games, which was the company that built that attraction. So in a way, I kind of
nice.
I got to work for 2 companies that had something to do with that DisneyQuest, and ultimately got to art direct the Disney's Atlantis video game, which was a crazy experience. That's a whole other conversation.
My impression with DisneyQuest space itself, I always thought of it as kind of the rainy day theme park at Walt Disney World. Because I think all the parks were in place when it was open. I'm not sure if it may have overlapped Animal Kingdom, but you could be sure on a rainy day that place was full.
Let's talk about that for a second, because when I was a kid, I always wanted to build an amusement park just because I was such a fan of the Imagineers, and I always envisioned that at some point we would have an amusement park that.
Oh,
we lost him.
Oh goodness. Hit stop.
So I don't know exactly.
I have resumed recording, and I will edit this part of me speaking. And Joel, you were just talking about designing a theme park.
Your audio is terrible there.
Yeah, you all of a sudden got a horrible signal.
You're in a box of springs.
How about
try
now?
Again? Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I think it finally caught up and synced. Yeah. Okay. So let me cut right back into the where I left off, so we can start over again and as if nothing happened. So when I was a kid, I wanted to build an amusement park. I did. I wanted to build. My father worked at a paper company. He bound books and magazines and printed posters. And I asked him for a big, massive sheet of paper, and he came home with a 6 feet long, 5 foot wide piece of kind of wrapping paper. It was brown. And
really clean sheet.
And I spent years drawing my own amusement park. So I came in that time for like 3 or 4 years. I would add another idea to my lands and would come up with these great ideas. And a lot of the ideas actually came to fruition, even though I was 8 years old at the time. Some of those rides actually happened.
It's amazing.
I was, I had some good foresight, I think, in terms of, I was already kind of in the Imagineering mindset at a very young age. I go to like Magic Mountain. I take pictures of the undercarriages of roller coasters to see how the wheels stuck to the track. I mean, that's the kind of kid I was. Just a weird kid.
Yeah, I
But
think there's like 3 creative genes in you that are all nuclear powered all the time because
yeah,
you always got a project that's just amazing.
right. But as I was saying, I think that Disney has a bit of a problem. You know, at some point, you know, what really is the haunted mansion outside of you're in a carriage and you're rotating around and you're looking at things. And I think, you know, 28 years in the video game industry and now seeing where VR technology is, it's so much more robust that maybe those rides at some point will be considered antiquated, especially with a young generation that is, they have a higher bar of expectation of what they see. And you can just apply that to what we expected with Close Encounters of the Third Kind versus what we see in movies today. People wouldn't be impressed. Kids wouldn't be impressed by that movie. I know, because I've shown it to my kids and they're like, yawn. And so I think that at some point we'll have a park that comes to you and the holodeck will become real. And you're seeing Disney try that. I think they had a big kind of rude awakening with Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, where, you know, there are only 2 attractions in that whole thing. Biggest land in Disneyland, and yet the land was mostly stores that you can buy things in and restaurants. And I think people were a little disappointed. I think that Harry Potter World, that whole experience was just a little bit more in depth, even though they had kind of a similar level of attraction count. It just felt like you were there.
And Joel, let's be honest. Disney
Yeah.
went out and hired Trowbridge. They said, "Hey, get me the Harry Potter guy and have him do that to Star Wars."
Well, which is funny because no one's supposed to know this, but I'm breaking some. I have no allegiances to Disney Imagineering, but I've been told by several Imagineers that quite a few of the Imagineers were moonlighting at the time, working for Harry Potter. That's what I was told, and so there's a lot of crossover. I mean, look, when you've got owl poop on the ground that has been hand painted and crafted to look like real owl poop, you have gone to another level of detail. So I was just blown away at the immersiveness of that park, that part of the park, and it blew my mind. And I thought, this is where, you know, these parks will still remain relevant. Yes. Where you feel like you're in the movie. Star Wars Galaxy's Edge didn't really get me there. I mean, if you take out the vehicles and you remove the new characters, you could think you're in Battlestar Galactica land or Aladdin land. You know, I mean, it's hard to kind of feel like they hit that note that I think everybody who grew up with Star Wars was hoping for. You know,
their basic formula started with, let's bring everybody to some unfamiliar space that was never shown in any story or any movie.
Yeah, I think that was a big misstep, and Disney has made mistakes with their parks. Paris has been struggling. You know, there's been some shortcomings in terms of their direction, and they got over their skis. And, you know, they've learned from those mistakes. I think that the Rise of the Resistance attraction is by far the best attraction on Earth in terms of its immersiveness. And they pulled out all the stops. I mean, they used every trick in the book on that attraction, and it shows. And I think that still keeps those types of attractions relevant, and you want to go to them. But, you know, we need to break new ground and figure out different ways of making you feel like you're there. And I think doing it virtually is still very much in the forefront of my mind as to where I think everybody's going to be going.
So do you imagine a future where we're wearing advanced suits that simulate pressure and motion and a tactileness, and we'll be plugged into these virtual environments?
You know, that has been tried many times in the video game industry to little avail. I think that at some point, I think there will be some of that. But, you know, that's really expensive to really kind of replicate touch. You know, I'm sure you can feel the hits and stuff like that. There's suits out there that are like that. But I don't know if people want that. You know, I don't think people want to be touched, especially if they've got their headgear on, they can't see, and they're looking at a virtual world. It might creep people out. It's one of those things, you know, you love Teddy Ruxpin, but you don't want his mouth moving and his eyes blinking. You know, I like talking toys, but not really. you know. So the idea is good, but can you execute it in a way that feels natural and real? And I just don't. I think it's a long way off before you feel things. But can we smell things? Can you feel wind? Can you feel heat, cold? Absolutely. And Disney already does that. You know, they do that in their own attractions right now. I mean, all the way back to Mr. Toad's Wild Ride when you feel the heat of hell. So that's a great mechanism. I want to feel those types of experiences. Wind blowing across my face, especially if you're in a haunted attraction, you want to feel the wind go by you, you know. But no, I think the visual part of it, the sound quality of it all, is that you're hearing things in the right direction that they're coming from. I think that's really the next frontier, you know.
Cool. Okay. We want to get into our concepts here. We want to jump in and see who goes. How about we'll do? I did first last show, and usually Jeff and I trade off, but I think we got a 3-way here. We can probably go Jeff, then Joel, and myself to close it out.
Oh, all right, Joel, you're going to stick around for the pitches.
Sure. Are you allowing your audience to pick a winner, or do you?
Yeah, we always do that.
We originally talked.
You're going up against the competition.
We batted about like a almost like a what is the show, Shark Tank, where we would bring a guest on, and Mark and I would both give our individual pitches, and the guest would pick which one they wanted to go with. Okay, I'm Bob Iger. I'm going to green light that. But we really didn't go that direction. Instead, we've just originally made it more of just a conversation and a jumping off point to chase rabbits. And we always said, we don't want to record this podcast as if we're talking to the audience. We just want to let them listen in on us talking about the nerdy stuff that we just love.
Well, I got you. But, you know, if you're thinking about Imagineering and the process, you know, Walt had a very specific way of coming up with ideas. It was the 3-chair concept. Have you heard of that?
No, let's hear it.
Well, he had 3 different chairs in his office that he would basically, the concept was you'd sit in each chair and you'd have an entirely different mindset to come up with great ideas. It was a great formula. The first chair was the blue sky chair, the dreamer's chair. And you'd sit in that and anything was possible. I could fly like Peter Pan. But the next chair was a little bit more of a, how do we get that done? You know, how would we do that? And the third chair was ultimately the spoiler chair, which is, tell me everything that will go wrong with this, so we can't do it. You know, is it cost? Is it, you know? So it was kind of a really practical way of approaching ideas. And that's why Walt Disney, still to this day, with his wild imagination, is still the leading guy. I mean, he created audio animatronics. That's still more 3D than Pixar, I hate to say. You know, and so I think that philosophy is a good way to approach this subject.
Yeah, I guarantee his brother Roy created that last chair there.
Yeah, he was definitely the bean counter. He was definitely the bean counter, trying to talk. But, you know, ultimately he went Walt's way, you know. Yes, he ultimately made it happen. You know, he figured out a way to make the money happen. So. Yeah.
So I think on this show, we mostly sit in the first chair. I try to sit in the second chair, at least in the extent of a lot of times I'll pay lip service to the notion of exit through the gift shop. We just put them through an experience. Now, what's the thing related to that they have to buy? And that's sort of how, in my mind, I can kind of pitch these things and say, okay, well, when we reimagine It's a Small World, I wanted a Pinocchio attraction. And so what I came up with in A Blue Sky was, you're going to go to a pre-show where you're going to find or design or pick your own conscience like Jiminy Cricket. And then at the end of it, there'd be like a Build-A-Bear setup with hundreds of different accessories. But if you remembered or you had attached to your MDE account what you had built, the cast members or even the automated Build-A-Bot can put it together and, hey, kids, for $39.99, here's the one you just designed. Oh, Dad, I got to have that. That's the one I made. You know, just like imagine you put that at the end of Test Track. You design a car. Well, while you're riding it, it's 3D printing it and making it available for people to buy. So I try to have that mindset of at least a a
A
bottom
full
line.
car? Well, yeah, that would be a great prize.
You know, they used to do that at
it's
World
great.
Motion.
It's great to live in that blue sky chair. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
reason why most kids want to become Imagineers, is that I want to dream about the impossible and do it. Ultimately, you do have to think about the practical applications of something. So I will one up you, and I will do all three things and make it fun. Make it fun.
That's cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'll go ahead and start with my pitch. And I was looking at this space. It was most recently the NBA Experience, and it was formerly DisneyQuest on this west side of Disney Springs, which was downtown Disney. I spent a lot of my college years going to downtown Disney, that area. Always had a lot of fun out there, and I tended to gravitate towards the west side just because there was easier parking. They had it was the Virgin Megastore. I used to love to go in there and just window shop for hours, get a coffee. There was the AMC Disney theater I saw so many first run movies at that theater, and even the Planet Hollywood. I remember on my 16th birthday, I thought, oh, there was nothing more fancy than, oh, look at me, I'm going to the Planet Hollywood. Absolutely loved it. And when you look at an aerial map of Disney Springs now, which includes the original Disney Village area, you have the former Pleasure Island area, and you have the west side. You can kind of divvy them up into three main sections. One of them being the village is really the Disney area, especially Disney shopping. There are a couple of restaurants over there. Then you get into the former Pleasure Island area, which is heavily focused on dining and drinking experiences. Really great. I love that Jock Lindsay's Hangar Bar. I don't think 90% of the people that go into Jock Lindsay's Hangar Bar understand that it's supposed to be themed to a minor Indiana Jones character, but it is, and it's done very well.
Yeah, actually, that was closed, unfortunately, because of COVID. The bars were all kind of shut down from that. So but I did get to take a peek in there, and it looked really good. I mean,
it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. I thought the theming. I'm like, I wish this was open. I want to go in there.
It's one of those things that I almost wish it was like in Hollywood Studios, right next to the Indiana Jones stunt show, so people could
exactly. Yeah.
You can think of all of this area of Disney Springs kind of being the Vegas Strip of Walt Disney World.
Well, now that they're breaking Walt's rule and allowing alcohol in Disneyland. I mean, if you're going to do it, at least give me the bar that was in Indiana Jones right next to the,
Pleasure Island
in Nepal.
I would have liked that instead of what they did with the Jungle Cruise restaurant, the little dine. I would have loved that bar being right next to the Tiki Room. If you're going to break that rule, I'm against that rule of alcohol in Disneyland. But if you're going to do it, at least make it fun. So
and see, and Mark and I are East Coasters, so we're more Disney World devotees. So in my mindset, if you want a drink, you go to Epcot. That's what that's for. That's for the adults, and you go to the World Showcase, and you can go get on the
I've heard. I've heard if you make it around the circle, that's a good day.
Sure,
you survived.
There's something called
going around the world.
There's something called the monorail crawl around the Magic Kingdom Seven Seas Lagoon.
That's fun too.
I would stop at the Mexican section, and the margaritas would end my circle. Yeah.
So going back to that aerial view I was talking about, looking at the springs in three parts, the west side of the springs, which sort of ends with the Cirque du Soleil theater that was purpose built for originally their Lanuba show. And I know they're coming up with a new show that's supposed to be more Disney character centric, which I thought was interesting that the Cirque guys were receptive to that. But I'm glad that they're bringing life back to that corner. And again, just like I said, I've seen some incredible acts at that House of Blues. I've seen Metallica play. I had James Hetfield look me in the eye and say, "What do you want to hear?" And I said, "Bleeding Me." And he said, "That's a good song." And like, whoa, he's 20 feet away from me. What is going on here? I'm at Disney. And across the way where DisneyQuest was, this is my pitch. This is what I want. And it took me a while to think about this because I was going to go a different route, but I really want to think this is the entertainment district of Disney Springs. And there's room to expand. There's room beyond the Cirque du Soleil Theater. There's lots of empty green spaces still left to develop. Let's focus on that entertainment. And what has Walt Disney done since the mid 90s with Beauty and the Beast, Hunchback of Notre Dame, and The Lion King? They have these massively successful Broadway shows. Now, one of the problems people will often say, like, what are the failures of Disney's MGM Studios as an actual working studio is, well, all your actors are going to be out in Hollywood. That's a West Coast thing. But a flight down from New York only takes about 2 hours as opposed to across country. So that's where I want to build. And I couldn't come up with a good idea of what I wanted to build. The New Amsterdam Theater in New York is not necessarily a visual spectacle, even though it runs so many of the Disney shows. So we may need a brand new radical design, something that fits there, but also stands out. And this would be a premier place to see those Disney level Broadway productions. We just recently, they announced that they're going to be bringing back the Finding Nemo stage show at Animal Kingdom, but it's going to be limited. And I think what they mean by limited is it's not going to have as many impressive actors or set pieces. Now, they still have an incredible Lion King show in Animal Kingdom that is somewhat inspired by the Broadway show. But this is, I think, an opportunity to bring some nighttime entertainment for the adults and even the kids, but bringing those different runs and using it to promote the Disney Broadway brand in Disney World and beyond. So you would have special engagements of the Mary Poppins show they did Newsies, bring them in and cycle them through. And you could even have day shows with the understudies at maybe a reduced rate. And I just feel like if you could do that, and if you could really hit on that, maybe there'd be a future for that part of the Springs to really be the entertainment portion. So, hey, let's go to Disney Springs. We'll get dinner and a show, and actually get a Broadway quality show that is, as they tend to focus on now, part of their Disney brand.
Yeah, a few years ago.
I think.
Go ahead.
I was going to say Walt Disney, I think, would probably like this because when he was doing his animated movies, he put his artists into college, basically art school, and they had live animals that they were drawing from. But Walt was always about the craftsmanship of the art of it all. And as much as you have these wonderful shows like the Magic Map at Disneyland, where you've got these top tier singers that are coming out, it's really a slice. I mean, I think the singers are just as good as anything that you would see in a Broadway show, but it's missing, of course, the show and the story. It's just a slice with that really amazing singer. And they did have Aladdin, which was a full show, but it was still one tier down from what you would probably get from Broadway. And I just think Walt would go for that. He'd want to push the boundaries on how can we reinvent Broadway so that it's got fully articulated, really elaborate stages, and maybe really get technology in there that really crosses a line, and breaks new ground. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, I saw the Aladdin show at the Fox Theater here last year in Atlanta, and they had the magic carpet up there flying on stage, and I was sitting there in the audience trying to figure out how in the hell does that damn thing work. It was really, really fascinating. But
they had that at Disneyland too, and yeah. I know how it works. I'm not telling.
Yeah. I saw the show at Disney's California Adventure of Aladdin, and I'm a huge fan of that movie. That's one of my favorite movies of all time. And I was really blown away by that production. And as someone who had been to Disney theme parks hundreds of times and seen many different shows, and in fact, I had a close friend of mine who was a puppeteer in a Lion King stage show that was in the Magic Kingdom for a brief while in the early 2000s. And I think all those puppeteers were probably a little too expensive for a theme park attraction. But so I was blown away by the level of immersion and detail in that Aladdin show. And I really feel like, hey, sure, we can't put Broadway quality in a park, but putting it in the Springs, it's an opportunity to be a little upscale. You're not that far from the the high end areas of Orlando with Windermere. So you're going to have locals that are going to want to come out and see these shows as well. But also, try to drive some activity and drive some foot traffic down to that west side. Because I'm going to tell you, even before COVID, it gets to be a ghost town there by the end. I think there's a lot of people that don't even know there is that House of Blues. And that bums me out because I love that experience, the seeing the acts there. And even the restaurant there is an incredible quality.
It was pretty packed when I went, even during the height and everybody's wearing masks.
I'm glad to hear that. That's good.
Yeah, there was a lot of people there in that downtown section, the Disney Springs. I was blown away. I mean, it is way more impressive than what we've got here in California. Downtown Disney is a little strip, very much like City Walk is. And I think that's kind of where they got the idea. Universal again ate their lunch and said, "Hey, when you're coming down the park, have a dinner and movie." So Disney picked up on that, did Downtown Disney, and then ultimately really knocked it out of the park. I think with Disney Springs, I was blown away. I could have hung out there all day.
Welcome to 43 square miles of opportunity.
Exactly. When you got room. But I think even if you have a technically spectacular show, the thing that Walt knew best was that you still needed real good, talented people to bring it to life. And it's those individual actors. We had this really incredible genie, and I wish at the top of my head I could remember his name, because he's actually a friend of mine on Facebook, and I can't remember his name. But he was probably one of the best genies I've ever seen. I laughed out loud to tears because he would improv and just bring so much to the show. That and relevant topics that were a little racy at times. He would be making comments on Justin Bieber and whatever problem he was going through. It was so cool. And having actually met Robin Williams a couple times, Robin would have liked that guy. That's what makes it interesting, because you're going to go back to the show and you're not going to see the exact same show. You're going to see something that's on the fly and kind of wild and fun, and it's a little different. It's not so cookie cutter, and that's what makes the Jungle Cruise so fun, because you just never know how the performance is going to be put out there. Even though the script's pretty similar, it's that personality and the cast members that makes Disney so much different than any other park in the world. So,
Jeff, one thing I like about your idea is that there was a D23 a few years ago. We got the announcement that there would be a Broadway-style theater in the Magic Kingdom taking place in Tony's Town Square, and that has been since cut from the budget. And I was actually glad they did that, because it's not the proper place to put a Broadway theater in the middle of a theme park where you have to enter a gate to get to that gate to get into the theater. And it was a little strange, a little odd for me. You had just parking to get into the Magic Kingdom at all is to some a nuisance, quite honestly,
especially if you're just purposely going there for a show and nothing else.
Disney Springs is the proper place for that. So
there was a little bit of that, but I was bringing to the table. And I'm going to digress and I want to tell Joel a brief story of one time I was in the Magic Kingdom with my wife, and we went on the Jungle Cruise. We just decided, hey, Jungle Cruise doesn't have a line. It's early in the morning. Let's go hop on it. It was us and one other couple in the boat. And the skipper was just doing his darndest, telling his corniest jokes, making us all laugh. And, we're sitting there enjoying ourselves. And the other couple is just on their phones the entire time. They're not paying attention. They're not looking. They don't care. And finally, right before we go into the mysterious temple, the cast member takes his microphone down, looks at those two and say, "Guys, it's really hard to do this when you're on your phones." And my wife started laughing so hard, so uncontrollably. Yeah. And she's also laughing out of embarrassment because they're right there. And they know she's laughing at them. And then right when we get out of the tunnel, he gets on the microphone and looks at my wife and says, "That was pretty funny, wasn't it?"
Now, listen, I feel bad for that cast member, that skipper, but it's really pointing out a problem that Disney has, which is people have seen it. They've seen it a bazillion times. It's nothing new. And people are getting distracted with other things that they can look at. And so it's a problem. It's a big problem. And
now it's on purpose too. They're going to be trying to set up their next attraction visit.
Right. I mean, they're encouraging you looking at your phone. So you can set up your pictures, you can order your food. I mean, everybody's staring at the phones now, and they're missing the magic. And so that's why I think my idea might change all that.
Let's. Well, Mark, you said you wanted to let Joel go between, so let's go
Yeah,
ahead and
I'm
segue.
excited.
Nice segue, right? Like
I'm
I
excited
know
to
how to
hear
do
this.
this. I know how to do this. All right. Well, I always wanted to, ever since I saw Star Trek: The Next Generation and I saw the holodeck, I'm like, wow, that is it. That's the end all. I mean, who wouldn't want a holodeck in their house where you can just say, I want to go to the Western, spaghetti Western, and I'm in it.
I think Scott
And
Adams called this the last invention mankind will ever make.
well, at least in terms of visual entertainment, sure. I think that is, aside from like maybe an interim technology of like Westworld, which maybe you don't necessarily want to experience. But it is kind of a next, I think that is the final thing. And maybe at some point we'll be able to plug in and, I know that Elon Musk is working on this incredible device that allows you to control computers with your mind. And then somebody trumped him and did even better right after that. So, I mean, I think we're headed to that transcendence at some point. And that might be very scary for a lot of people, thinking we could achieve the Matrix-like experiment. But I did have this idea, which surprisingly Elon Musk mentioned, which is that, think about where I started in this conversation, where 16 colors, and look where we are now.
Mhm.
Where will we be in 100 years? Elon Musk brought that up. And I'm like, wow, yeah. Could we ultimately simulate reality? Of course we could. Of course we can. That I think is achievable at some point in our future. So how would we do that right now, today? Well, I've got a great idea. I would take DisneyQuest and I would build out an incredibly complex, very inexpensive vacuum formed plastic maze. Now, vacuum formed plastic is what we use in Hollywood to create facades. You can, for example, make one really good brick system or, a stone system, and then you take the vacuum formed plastic and you mold it to that print, and it takes the shape of that brick, and then you paint it to look like brick. And it's a very inexpensive way of building walls or whatever. And so we would build out this really inexpensive maze, kind of like Doom, and maybe some of the walls move, some of them rearrange. Maybe we even have a room that simulates an elevator, even though it's not going anywhere. Maybe we have ride vehicles in there that you can hop into, but none of it is painted. You don't need paint. You don't need anything to pretty it up. Instead, we would use augmented reality glasses. In fact, Microsoft has a really sophisticated augmented reality glasses coming out where it would yeah, exactly. Where you would put these glasses on, you could see the real world through it. So we would be able to see real people interacting with you, cast members that are playing their part in full outfit, full uniform. So let's say we wanted to go to Star Wars land, what we would do is we get inside a ride vehicle similar to, like, let's say Star Tours, but instead of it being a bumpy ride, maybe that's where you have hors d'oeuvres. You're leaving the planet and going to another planet. So you're in, and in fact, I had this idea probably about 20 years ago. And it's funny because if you go on Ride of the Resistance, they have this part of the attraction already built. I had kind of a foreshadowing of how that would work. And so you take the shuttle and you go somewhere else. And you're looking out the windows with these really great, at the time I was thinking liquid crystal simulation TVs and monitors and stuff like that, which at the time was the highest quality simulation. But now we've got really high-end LED TVs that can really make you think you're looking out a window. So you would be in the shuttle and you could have all your hors d'oeuvres. You could have your appetizers. You can order your meal. You can go into a locker room and dress up and get into your uniform, and then eventually you'd land on the planet. So you enter in one door and exit out the opposite side. That way you've really not gone anywhere, but you have, right? And then we come into a dome projection system using my Oceania technology I was talking about with the World's Lisbon Fair, or, soaring over California for those Disney people that are familiar with that. And you put a giant dome over a club. And when you look out the window, you can just see this world that you're in. But let's say that you actually want to go to your hotel room or you want to go on an adventure. Well, you can have your fun where you're eating in this beautiful Environment. You got you got all the cast members are aliens. They got full makeup on. They're talking to you. Oh, so you're visiting here from Earth? Oh, wonderful. And have that interaction. Maybe you're looking out the window. You're underwater. You're in a saucer, and you're looking out the window, and you're seeing incredible alien creatures going by. Yeah,
I'm almost
how amazing
thinking
would that be?
you could almost have a crossover between things going on Disney Plus. We just saw the whole
Right.
Loki series where he's a variant and he's in these different worlds all the time and he's seeing different versions of himself. And
well, exactly.
You could almost literally set up a day that's just to that theme. You can walk in there and see variants of you.
Well, the whole room could be a saucer that you're in that could take you to different places on the planet. And of course, you got to be careful with the motion simulator part of it because you don't want people throwing up their food. But if you did it right, maybe you're just blinking there. There's a teleportation way of getting around versus flying, which may, again, cause nausea for most people. So you don't want that.
If you do it right, there's a way to pull that off.
Let's say that the saucer gets attacked. Well, now you're on an adventure. You've had dinner, and now let's go have some fun. So you put on the AR glasses, right? And you can see straight through them. But once you enter into that corridor of very inexpensive vacuum form plastic, we do what's called, I came up with this term, it's called real world texturing. And you would simply you would build the exact same maze in 3D and then using telemetry to know your exact pinpoint location in 3D space in the real world. It would line up the visuals and using a little help with real world mapping, slap those textures right on that brick. So the brick will, when you feel it, it's actually there. You can actually touch the wall.
See, this is
look like anything.
This is where I want to tell you, Joel, this is what's going to be next level. I've done a couple of times the Void experience. I did
I wrote the white paper and I know those guys saw it.
Yeah. And
but they're behind me on this.
But you're right, because when you're 100% VR, everyone in my party kept inching forward just a little bit, and then they lift their goggles like, am I gonna bump into a wall? Okay, no. And so they didn't trust it. And there was even a part where there's a VR
because that's complete VR.
It's
not AR.
You need
that's
that AR.
You need
you need
it.
That's exactly right. Keep going. I'm sorry.
So aside from so when you take the glasses off, you're looking at a really ugly looking building. It's like pulling the curtain back from the Wizard of Oz. You're seeing the tricks, but you put those glasses back on, and you should be able to take your glasses off so that you can actually walk around in that room without, if you had an emergency, you'd want the simulation to be over. So instead of like telling somebody that simulation's over, you just take the glasses off and walk out the exit. But when you're in there, you could have wind, heat. You can have all kinds of things. You can go into an elevator and then the room recalibrates itself with the actual props, these actual physical things that are made cheaply. And you come back out and you think you're on a different floor, but really you're on the same floor. It just felt like you went somewhere visually, just like Haunted Mansion. And then, but you're in a different place entirely. So there's so many potentials for how that can go, and the limitations are really endless. But the ability to actually, have like a laser gun and you're firing at real people that may have sensors that just like laser tag picking up the hits, or just you can have simulated CG characters, monsters, bosses that you're fighting, which would be really fun. Or being, chasing you down the down the hallway, like that giant octopus-looking thing in Solo, in the Harrison Ford was in the last movie he had a giant.
Oh, Force Awakens, yeah,
the Force Awakens. You have that thing coming down at you. I mean, it would be intense, and again, you could feel the walls, you could feel the texture of the walls. They're actually there, but because of the simulation, you could really control the experience much like the real holodeck would by just designing the world to keep you going in circles, thinking that you're going somewhere else. And that, my friends, is how you do the holodeck today.
And you're going to have an industry leader like a Disney or even a Universal really be the first ones to tackle that. That's where you're going to see it. The latency is really becoming a non-issue, and the quality of the visuals are again, we're getting to that uncanny valley. We're crossing it. We already did it with the deep fake, with the deep Tom Cruise that's on TikTok. It's mind-blowing. They took thousands of examples of his face to create a perfect Tom Cruise model.
and this guy looks exactly like him, and I can't tell that it's a simulation. So we're very, very close to breaking barriers that we thought were unachievable not even 10 years ago. So I think this is very doable now. It's just a matter of us doing it. And I can't imagine it's going to be too expensive. And the benefit of this technology is if you don't like the simulation, you could change it pretty easily. It's different than traditional attractions where they're built in with actual physical animatronics that break down. You have to maintain. This is just simple walls with a visual, which is all that Disneyland has really been up until recently, you know?
Yeah, you could one person could want a Wild West simulation, another person could want a medieval Game of Thrones theme or something like that.
Whatever. Yeah. No limitations. You could be wherever. I mean, it really. And look, you could, instead of you being on, and you could even, I originally thought this would be cool if you were on like a train or something like that. And you had different time periods, you know, like you had a submarine if you wanted to go to a deep, deep underwater planet. You'd be in a train car if you wanted to go to a Western land, you know, or you would be in a space shuttle if you wanted to go to another planet. And you would, the appetizer car would be themed to wherever you were headed. And, I just think this is fun. That's what people want to do. And they want to be in character. They want to be dressed up themselves, interacting with people that really believe they're there.
I think this could be a good experimental space that's useful for the entire corporation. You could have Imagineers plan for the space, plan for the experiences, and the people that do the Pixar productions could be involved with it all the time.
Well, I can't say
year after year, you could change it and change it and change it. And as technology progresses, it's really easy to shift everything accordingly and advance it. That's the beauty of this thing. It's very, very
well. I just told everybody in the world, and we're putting this in record here, of this idea. So I put it out there as open source, so anybody can do it. If they got the money, do it. Hire me. I'll tell you how to do it right. But just to be honest, this is my end goal. Aside from a show that I'm trying to get produced, where I've got toy technology, toy store for real technology I've worked on with my business partner for 10 years. Let me just touch on that real quick.
Yeah, sure.
Which can also be another part of this simulation. We've got this little $5 device. It's the size of a pack of gum. We can put this into any toy, a plush toy, for example. Just put the standalone unit in a little pocket in the belly, and a little flap comes over it that allows you to press the content button. And boom, these toys will talk to each other and control robotics. You get millions of toys talking to each other indefinitely at CD quality sound. It is Toy Story for real. And the benefit of this is it can interact with movies, television, games, and attractions like this one. So imagine having a Yoda right next to you that you're carrying on your back, and he's talking to you. He's telling you where to go, and he's interacting with the virtual characters and the real people. If we wanted that to happen, that we could do that right now. And
the PAL Mickey times 20.
Yeah, PAL Mickey was a problematic technology. I read about that, and it failed. They were using kind of a antiquated technology. I think it had a lot of potential, but we can have millions of toys talking to each other right now and interacting with any product. So we're just looking for investors for that, and I'm pretty close to getting them. So this is the end goal, is to try to build an amusement park that comes to you. And just to kind of elaborate on that idea of the holodeck, aside from having a physical location at Disney, I always thought that we could do this at your home, so that you put on the AR glasses, and wherever you look, like, for example, if you're looking at a picture on your wall, I can replace the picture. I can turn it into like Pete the Magic Dragon. And as you get closer, it knows that you're getting closer, because that's how AR works. It's doing real-time mapping. It will not only replace that picture with the Pete the Magic Dragon, but as you get closer to it, maybe the dragon comes alive and comes out of the painting and you're fighting it, and maybe it's recognizing a chair as a chair, and we're just skinning it as a cartoon chair, And so there's a way of doing this right now with existing technology, with the Unreal Engine, much like what you see in video games, but doing it in your real world.
I can even think of some practical commercial applications. Imagine you're doing an open house of some real estate, and you have all of your furniture scanned into your AR goggles, and then the algorithm determines, okay, here's the dining room. Here's what the dining room would look like with your dining room table.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's already amazing engines out there that can extrapolate a space and kind of organically populate a room in a
But to do
natural
that,
way.
but to do that from a point of view in a pseudo three-dimensional way where you're in the space and then see the virtual items, I think that could really be neat.
Yeah, just a side note here on Twitter. There's a user. His handle is at FuturePort82. He's in Australia right now, and he's a developer using Unreal Engine. He is designing right now Epcot Center in 1982, fully populated. Every nook and cranny, every wall trim, every paint edge, every bush, everywhere, and trying to create a foundation for this environment to be used for anything else. It's really incredible.
I have seen Disneyland in Minecraft, for example. I mean, there's people that are just obsessed with building a virtual simulation, and it's just a matter of look, how open-ended can we make this? Can we make this an open-ended world where anybody can contribute to it? There are massive libraries out there of models. TurboSquid is a great example of that. Although, I've downloaded a lot of models from that group, and some of them are incredibly heavy and wouldn't work in a real-time scenario at all. But, so there would have to be standards and practices for how people could contribute a high-end model that would work within the simulation. But you could open it up to the public, and a lot of the work can be done freely, just with people contributing and wanting to be a part of that magic. And I think that, to me, is something I'd want to do.
Yeah.
I mean, why limit it to just the Imagineers? Open it up to all of the world's creative thinkers out there that would love to be a part of something like that. I mean, come on, let's do it, guys. We're limiting ourselves to a handful of people, and then who are overrun by bean counters now that are limiting and hindering creativity. I see it in a lot of creative industries right now.
This is the ultimate experimental platform for those type of creative individuals.
Yeah. I mean, Spielberg was talking about it with the last movie he did, Ready Player One. But, I look at that movie and think that's not the future I want. I don't want that future. I don't want to tune out where the real world sucks. And the virtual world is the one. I mean, I don't like the Lawnmower Man kind of foreshadowing of the future. It's not good. So with it has to come responsibility on these technologies, and I think that's where there's going to be battles with society as we slowly disengage and turn on and tune out in a different way. with to use an old 70s analogy, I mean, that it really is kind of, it's creating a dopamine effect, video games. And it's one of the reasons why after 28 years, I left the video game business, because I saw what it was doing to families, and the amount of time that teenagers and kids and just adults spend on those things. I heard people wearing diapers because they didn't want to get up. They were in a group, and so there's problems with this, and we have to think about those problems. And we want to have freedom and stuff like that. We want to have free virtual vacations and stuff like that are affordable to everybody. But with it you have to come in with responsibility too.
Yeah, I think starting it at a location like Disney Springs could help control that.
Yeah, I think they'd have to leave it. They couldn't take it at home yet.
Yeah.
But at some point when you get that experience, and there will be a home developer that will figure out a way to make it for home use.
Yes.
It's just inevitable. I mean, that's the thing. Everything is going to be achieved. We'll, I think, at some point figure out how to arrest the aging process, or one of the most controversial subjects on earth is the abortion subject, which I'm just going to touch on here, because when I spoke at Harvard, I actually got to meet and see a real world artificial womb, and at some point technology is going to force us to really delve into, we could do it, but should we do it? We'll have a Jurassic Park moment.
there's already right now robotic surgery machines where the doctor can operate from afar.
Right.
In a different city, different continent. You're just hoping and praying that internet connection is solid.
Yeah, I mean, how do you deal with that abortion bumper sticker where everybody says "my body, my choice" when an artificial womb kind of takes you out of the equation? I mean, my 3 kids are in vitro. So, I'm intimately familiar with how technology can give us things that we didn't exactly expect.
Yeah.
And so I think that the idea that I have here is great, but I think it does come with a tremendous amount of responsibility. And I think just putting it in that DisneyQuest space, and you have to play it and then leave, that's one way to handle that. But at some point,
Yeah. So would you have a name for this? Probably can't call it the holodeck. Maybe it's DisneySpace. How about that?
Yeah. If I was going to brand it for Disney, it would have to be like DisneySpace. Why? Yeah, why not?
The ultimate
That's
Disney
perfect.
Space.
I think there might be some liabilities there, but with your show, no, they own the name, and of course it makes sense to call it that. That's a good name actually for it.
Yeah.
How appropriate.
Joe, real quick, one of the points you just got my mind going down a rabbit hole of you were mentioning just people across the globe, and we're talking about a famous Star Trek technology with the holodeck, but I was also thinking about augmented reality and the way AI can work with that, and the hope for the future and for peace. The idea of the universal translator, the idea that we can communicate with anybody,
right?
They could wear, an earpiece, and so I communicate in English, they could speak in another language, but we can both understand each other. And a virtual space that could be done much more seamlessly, where you're not hearing the feedback or getting the what you would call the Japanese monster movie dubbing effect.
Better yet, there's a lot of linguistics out there, you guys that study and girls that study the different fantasy languages, like Klingon, for example. There are people that know Klingon. How cool would it be to be in that space and then they're talking Klingon, but you're hearing it in English? You hear them talking to you in this alien language, but the translator is, come on, we could do it. The Elven language, for example. There's so many amazing languages.
Pandora.
Speaking of which, the guy that wrote Tolkien was a master in language, and he was a linguist. Yeah, and he invented some languages there. So we could have fun with that if you get actors that really know what they're doing, and maybe they just know a few lines that are important. But that could really add another level of depth to this. By a landslide. Yeah, that'd be great. Right. I like your idea. You just plussed it.
Yeah.
That's the thing here. We like to plus it.
So, Mark, we got the bulldozers ready. What are you going to build?
Yeah, I think we're going to need those bulldozers for this one. I don't know where I'm going to place in this. This might be a third place on this call tonight, but let's hear me out. I'm going to actually fill in a gap where I see a gap, and it's kind of, so it may actually be a little bit of a blend between the physical and a little bit of Joel's idea, but it's really challenging to think how to fill such a giant space in Disney Springs, where DisneyQuest is now gone and NBS Experience is now defunct. And it's really hard to come up with something that really works, not just out of the gate, but for the long haul. I think it'll be a constant challenge for Disney. But I think if I was going to look at the space,
it would be a great spot for a super Target.
How long will that last?
A giant Walmart, a super Walmart. Yeah.
In the past, the space has really had an attraction focus versus a something else focus, and so I'm going to sort of move over to a something else focus, and it's something else that Disney has had some of these things that I'm about to pitch in other venues, but here I go. But I think, first, before I need to explain this, I need to take a step sideways and discuss the corporate dimension and consider some basic ideas of corporate structure and accounting. I know that's boring, but it'll kind of lead to why this idea might have some legs.
Where is this going, man? Where is this going?
It's going to get a little...
your listeners are falling asleep all of a sudden. You said accounting. That's like the death knell.
But if you think of
get out of the third chair, we sit in the first chair.
You're a bean counter, I'm kicking you out.
Yeah, it's gonna be related to all of our ideas. But if you think of the Walt Disney Corporation, it's a very large decentralized organization, but it cross-pollinates between its various business units. So you have the studio side of the business that has the Disney Studios, the animation, Pixar, Marvel Studios, Lucasfilm, 20th Century Studios. You got Parks and Resorts. You got the cruise line. You got Disney Digital. You have network and cable TV property. You got a lot. Just go to go.com and you'll see everything they have. It's a big web page full of the mess of business units throughout the corporation.
So what you're saying is that Disney owns everything.
Yeah,
okay,
almost.
all right.
Almost.
They're headed to it.
So the question is, how does
everything that Comcast hasn't bought already?
Yeah, and these are really essentially independent corporate entities that have their own leadership teams, their own management structures, their own budgets, their own subcultures, all of that. And since Disney is one overarching company, we often see these business units work together and kind of cross-pollinate with each other. And this is partly why we see Galaxy's Edge into theme parks. It's Star Wars related. Why we have Marvel Day at Sea on the cruise lines. Why we have Frozen and Ratatouille in World Showcase. We have Muppet Haunted Mansion on Disney Plus. We have Disney
I see where
parks.
you're going with this. We're going to take all the accountants and put them in one building, and then they look at them through a window. No,
no, that's not where we're going. It's not going to get boring here. I promise you.
All right.
So the general idea is, what can we do with this sharing of content and make something that can pay itself off and work and be functional and last and help the company. So if we really dive down into the aspects of the corporate structure, we can see the notion of cost centers and profit centers, and they relate to the idea of how you got to spend money to save money, or to make money over the long haul. So these things kind of work together. Costs can often drag down a company and kill their profitability, but if done right, if capitalized right, costs can actually enable it and increase the profitability. And I know I'm starting to sound like Chapek here, but the basic idea is, when you look at a theme park and you look at something like, let's just take the Hollywood Hotel, the Tower of Terror. When you look at it, it's not really in and of itself making money. It's a cost center. So, it's people come up to it, they ride it, they experience it, they walk away from it, they observe it, they enjoy it, but discounting the little shop there, they're not getting money.
You want to live there. You want to live there in that hotel, right?
I want to live there. But so why does Disney have the Tower of Terror at all? Because they have this ticket gate, and they have this app, this My Disney Experience app, where you pay to come to the parks. And it's it's money that Disney spends to have this attraction to bring the people in.
And while you're there, you buy a $5 thing of sugar water that costs them 10 cents.
Yeah. So these attractions are the cost centers. The ticket gates are the profit centers, and so are the merch shops and all that. And so what I'm going to come up with is something that's not really a place that's an attraction. It's not really a place where people go to spend money, but it's something I think Disney could use to help one of the areas of their business, and that's the cruise line. So I want to take a look at the cruise line. You have the Magic Wonder ships of the Magic class. These are huge cruise ships. These smaller ships, the small ships, they house 2,700 passengers and 875 staterooms. The Dream and Fantasy ships, the bigger class, what they call the Dream class ships, they have 4,000 passengers and 1,250 staterooms. A lot of people.
They're big.
And they got the Wish is coming out very soon, and they got 3 more ships behind that. And I guarantee you they'll have 10 more ships in the next 20 years. All around the world, it's a whole giant business in of itself.
Well, let's see how COVID goes.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. But even that, they had, this is actually something that could help that. Okay. So right now, today, they have 280 departures per year, ranging from 3 to 14 night sailings around the world. So it's handling a lot of people all the time, lots and lots of transactions. And so the question is what do you do actually? What does Disney do? What all kind of tools does their marketing department or people have to bring all these people into that business constantly, all the time, not just returning sailors, but new people.
Well, at Disneyland, they have the vacation people, and they have a big book that shows you what the rooms will look like, and it's just they talk you through it. I mean, that's currently what they do. Yeah.
And so there's lots of different solutions for that. And I'm going to ask a question here. I'm sure Jeff will be able to answer it right away. Right. Joel, let's see if Joel can answer it. And this is going to be in quotes. Have you heard of Disney's best kept secret?
That's a can of worms. I'm not going to even attempt to answer it.
Jeff, can you answer it?
So isn't that the marketing slogan for the Disney Vacation Club, which I'm going to just call a timeshare?
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
and I've kind of stayed away from it. So anything that sounds like timeshare, even if it's fully articulated out with like rooms and stuff like that, I just kind of stay away from those things because
Yeah, this is why I
and
thought Jeff.
it caters to a particular group of people that have money.
Yeah, yeah, none of us. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think Jeff was able to answer that because Disney World is very populated, full of Disney Vacation Club everything. Disneyland has a taste of it.
I'm going to
But
tell
yeah,
you, in the Magic Kingdom, I think every major land has a kiosk that's manned
yes,
by at least one, if not two people. And they're not high pressure sales. They won't approach you and say, you got to come listen to my pitch. But if you give them a casual nod, they say, hey, how's it going? And then whoop, then if it's someone like my mother-in-law, they'll talk up Ken like they do in Louisiana and stand there for 45 minutes. The next thing you know, we've got 2 weeks at Saratoga Springs. What happened? What?
So, Mark, are
yeah,
you thinking, Mark, on this idea that you've got to replace DisneyQuest? Is it basically to kind of simulate the ship experience? And could you, is that what,
let's
and
yeah.
could you stay in it, or is
Let me
it just for looks?
let me get to that. Let me get to that.
Yeah.
If I get back on the DVC system, like Jeff mentioned, there's kiosks all over the park. Well, there's all kinds of promotional materials, and it's a challenge for Disney marketing all the time to populate the Disney Vacation Club. And it's something, it's churning all that. They're always making new properties. They're replacing people who've left, and so they have this litany of salespeople and informational brochures and buyer's guides and mail-in DVDs and YouTube videos and testimonials from bloggers and vloggers, and just a litany of tools they use to constantly pull people to buy in. Well, one of the good things about the DVC product is that it's on land. If you want to get into that, you're sort of already familiar with what it's like to be in a timeshare or a hotel. And if you're a little bit particular about it, you can sort of gain comfort knowing that you got a parking place to put your car. You can go to the store if you want to. You sort of know what to expect. You can jump those hurdles to buy into the system, discounting all the other stuff you have to deal with. I understand, but that marketing pull is always constantly active. Well, it is for the Disney Cruise Line too, but the Disney Cruise Line is a bit more complex because there's a lot of people who are somewhat hesitant to come to a cruise for a variety of reasons. One of them is you're stuck on a ship the whole time, and you're at sea and the thing is moving, you're away from your car. If you're at a full days of sea, you cannot get off the ship. You're in there. And so there's that natural hesitancy for many people to not be able to begin to get full familiarity with what the expectations are with today's materials. And there's
Well,
something
just to play devil's advocate, though,
yeah.
I mean, ultimately, the point of a cruise is to escape the real world and to go to a destination,
Yeah, that's part of
which
the pitch.
you can get off and look around, right? So
Yeah.
this is not, you would not have a destination, right? Or would you?
That's part of the pitch, is that they absolutely they would express all of those types of things. When you're on a
So
ship,
what are you looking
you're gonna
at?
get. All right. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the building here, and let me explain the thing all the way through from the beginning to end. If you take the building, what we're gonna do is I'm looking at it, deconstructing it and rebuilding it, because I'm not really sure that the NBA experience building is going to be large enough for this.
Not seaworthy?
Yeah, well, I think the height, I think the DisneyQuest building was a little bit higher. So what I'd like to do is actually build a structure inside this building that is a small replica of what you might see in a ship. Now, of course, we're not going to build a whole ship in that thing. It's too gargantuan and unnecessary. But if you think of Joel, I don't think it was open when you were in Epcot, and I know Jeff may have seen this. There's this new restaurant at Epcot at Mission Space called Space 2020. It just opened. It's brand new, and it's really nice. It's you walk into this welcoming area, and then they check you in. You go into an elevator, and the elevator closes its doors, and the elevator has the center little viewing window at the bottom of a lens down onto the plant on Earth, and it has a lens up above, and then the doors close, and then the elevator
It's a
begins to
space
rise.
elevator.
Yeah, a space elevator. You can see
Yeah.
the like the zoom out of Google Earth experience. You can see Disney World just kind of disappear, and you're in the clouds, and you can see the tower kind of flowing real fast, and all of a sudden it stops. You can look up and you can see yourself park at the space station.
I got it. How does that equate to your idea?
It's somewhat similar. When you walk into the space, you're going to walk in. You'll walk through the doors. You'll be greeted by a cast member, who is sort of like a guide. You walk into the building. You walk a corridor, and you'll be looking at this gargantuan side of a ship. And you'll go into a corridor. You'll get the Purell squirt, because everybody, the ships are all about safety. So you get that experience of getting the Purell squirt, but you'll walk right into an atrium, a fully constructed atrium within this building. And you look at it and you will feel as if you were on any number of the Disney ships that exist, to really capture that physical impression that some people might need to cover any of their curiosities. Right now for DVC, if you want to really get an exploration of what you're going to buy into, you can get a tour. You can schedule a tour. They'll pick you up at Disney Springs. You get on the bus, you go to the old Key West resorts and whatever you want to, and they'll walk you around, show you all the amenities. No problem.
And you can actually walk on the boat, right?
That's the problem with the Disney cruise ships. They are always active all the time. So there's no opportunity to walk onto the boat without paying to get on the boat.
Now, it's too bad that they just, in my opinion, they would be just saving a lot of money instead of building your idea out to just basically making it so that one day they can have a tour of all their ships. One day out of the year is not going to cut into their money much if it's ultimately a marketing ploy. Why not just do it that way and save yourself replicating something that would be very expensive that doesn't go anywhere?
Yeah, I think that would be a really good way to do it. I agree with that. But
I'm trying to, how do you get to the end goal? I mean, we're half an hour into your idea, and I always like thinking, well, how can we do this faster, cheaper, inexpensively? Because that's how Disney thinks. They're trying.
And the point of having this at Disney Springs is because you have a population of tourists that are already in the area exploring everything already. And it is similar to other types of things they do right now for inviting experiences.
Well, as a Disney fine artist, I understand that, because being in the Disneyana gallery is a lot better than, let's say, just being in a remote mall gallery. The foot traffic is insane, and I get that. But ultimately, I would still want to go down to like the port of Long Beach or wherever these ships show up, and let me go on it one day and just walk around. And it's not going anywhere, but let me just walk in there. Actually, I thought of I know you wanted to say something there. I heard something. You want to cut in there? No, it's okay. I've got a great idea of how we can take all three of our ideas and combine them.
Yes,
but go ahead.
I was about to go there.
Say what you're going to say.
So I'm going to push back on Mark, probably more than I've ever have in the history of this show, and say, Mark, I've grown up in Florida. I love the beaches. I'll go a week's resort stay on a beautiful beach in Destin or in St. Pete or in Miami or the Keys. I'm not getting on a cruise ship. I have no desire to spend 5 days in a 200 square foot room and a dirty pool. All the kids are peeing in. There's nothing about a Disney cruise. And listen, Joel, this is where I go a lot, is the Disney fandoms have all these different planets they're like moons that orbit planet Disney. You have the theme park planet, you've got the animated films planet, you got the Pixar planet, you've got like Mark does the marathon running, you got the Run Disney planet, and you've got the Disney cruise ship planet. And that's a planet or a moon that I never have any desire to go to. So Mark, I'm going to push this on you. Convince me to go inside this building. What is it that's going to draw me into your...
Yeah, I'm not really a big cruise person either, and to me, this idea sounds like a place I would never want to go.
There's a bar in there. Okay.
I'm not a big drinker anymore, but
all right. How about this? Discounting Jeff and Joel, they're not going to go on any cruises. There are many people in the population of the country that are considering maybe going on a cruise, but taking that leap is sometimes a $10,000 leap. You understand what I'm saying?
Well, you're really hitting on the point of your idea there, which we have to kind of point out. You're talking about a small group of people. It's a niche that are really on the fence. Most people that like your co-host was saying, most people either want to go or they don't want to go, and they've made up their mind, and they can either afford it or not. It's that small little niche group of people. And you have to kind of, again, if I was a bean counter, which I don't like, I would have to say, is the investment of your idea to put this in a place, and again, I'm being in the more practical chair right now.
That is an honest question. That is an honest, that's why I mentioned this.
Yeah. Does the cost of replicating a cruise ship justify that niche of money that you would get out of the handful of small group of people that are undecided? And I don't know if that's the risk reward thing I want to take as an investor.
The answer to your question, Joel, is no, for the question that you asked. But if we were to build the partials of a ship, not just to really persuade people to come on a ship, but just to really introduce any type of visitor that's in Disney Springs to the Disney Cruise Line at all, and say, I've never been on a Disney Cruise Line. I will never go on a Disney Cruise Line. But what is it like?
All right, I'm going to plus it. I'm going to do what Walt would do, because he would never say no to an idea. Mm-hmm. He wouldn't. He would always say no. But what if we did it this way? So I'm going to take your idea, and I'm going to take your co-host's idea. I'm going to merge it with my idea, and tell you how we could do all three things in one. How does that sound?
That sounds perfect.
You excited? Well, certainly you've seen The Fifth Element, right? Bruce Willis, The Fifth Element.
Yep.
Bueller. All right.
Love that movie.
Well, that was a flying ship hotel. It was kind of a ship, kind of like a cruise ship, actually. When you're talking about this, I was thinking about The Fifth Element. I'm like, I want to go on The Fifth Element. Well, hey, let's make it so that our space, this DisneyQuest space, offers something for everybody, not just the individual, the niche, and maybe not just the Broadway people, but let's give them everything in this space, meaning I can go in and just have appetizers in the shuttle, and then go to the bar and maybe have that bar experience or that dining experience in that dome projection. Or I can go into an adventure in that maze section where I'm on the deck of a ship and I'm going to my hotel room. And maybe we take your idea, Mark, and we make it so that we can actually see what a fully articulated room looks like where you're actually staying, and you're looking out the window and you're seeing space or whatever, or it's simulating the ocean or however you want to do it. And then ultimately you can go to a show, you were doing a Broadway show with aliens,
just I love that.
Look, if Disney is all about buying properties, maybe Fifth Element will be in there. And I would love to go to and be in that Fifth Element experience. And you could do that whole thing with all three of our ideas in that one space, because you would have the space to do it. And you wouldn't have to do it all. Like, you don't have to, the Star Wars hotel experience that's coming out. I was so excited about that. Sounded a lot like this, without my holodeck idea, of course, but it sounded like that. And then when it came out and people found the price, they literally threw their phones at the screen. They're like, "Are you kidding me? This is only for rich people. I will never be able to go to this thing. It's out of the price range." But if you were to do it compartmentalized like that, well, maybe I could just do just the maze experience, or I could just do just the bar experience, or I could do just the hotel and stay in this place. You will accommodate the whole family in that experience, and they'll want to go there. They'll want to go there. So how did I do?
I like it.
Did I plus it?
We've got Broadway, we've got technology, and we'll even sell some cruises.
Hey, you know what? And sometimes, maybe you'll get a big enough audience where, some of these Disney executives are listening, and they are apt to take other people's ideas and make them. They do. I know that they look at a lot of Etsy people with their really crafty hats, and all of a sudden I'm seeing that they'll give the cease and desist, but all of a sudden I'll see it in the park. I'll see a very similar hat in the park, because it's just a cool idea. So Disney, if you're listening, you have complete rights to this. Go for it. Do it. We want you to do it. You have our permission, and we don't want any royalties. Just make it so. Number one.
Hey, make it
all
so.
Right.
But I want to come back to this point.
Mark, you cut out there a little bit. I can't hear you.
Caller, could you speak up, please? Oh no!
I think we may have lost Mark there.
I could hear him, but it's like he's like in the other room.
Right. I did hear a dog. The dog could come on the flight with us if we wanted to go. Dogs are allowed. Yeah.
Well, listen, I think we can go ahead and wrap this up. Joel, thank you so much for your time today. It was so great to get to meet you, and I had a lot of fun. I wrote down what you said about the 3 chairs. because that's actually something that I'm going to apply in my boring corporate world life. I love that idea. Okay, we're going to sit in the blue sky chair. We're going to sit in the practical chair, and then we're going to be the spoiler bean counter. And I think I love that idea is
Thank you.
possible, and then what can we do? And that's a great perspective. There's a great Walt Disney quote that I loved. That it was the Sherman brothers who said they went up to Walt and said, "Hey, we've got a great idea for a song." And he says, "You have an idea? I'll let you know if it's great." And it's like, oh, wow.
That's a funny thing you should mention. Walt was, everybody was a little terrified of Walt because he would go into there's a room that they would call like the hot box room, and the dailies would be looked at and people would be sweating the bullets, and Walt did not pull any punches. If he didn't like your idea, he'd say, "Nope, that's not working." And the Imagineers were always waiting for him to say these magic words, "That'll work." He never gave praise to people. He just put people in a room. He was really smart about putting people, creative people, and putting them in a room and let them work out and then come up with some ideas. And then he'd listen to them and either nix it or say, "Keep working on it." And it's that level of creativity without middle management that I think is missing from today's creative world, where people could just be creative, like what we just did here. I mean, I think you got a really good taste of, how my brain works and how I've worked in the different creative industries that I worked in. I've really had to brainstorm the impossible, and Walt really is the inspiration behind that. He was a genius at seeing into the future, being predictive, but allowing that level of creativity that you just don't get in today's market, because most of what people are doing today, and I think your listeners will agree, that everything, movies, books, television, games, it's all been done. Like, they don't take risks on anything. It's already been a book before it became a movie, or it's already a movie. It was already a game before it became a book. I mean, there is nothing that they don't want to take a risk on an original idea anymore. They're terrified of losing their shirts, and things do cost a lot of money, but I'm looking for the original ideas now, and I'm not seeing it. And, maybe someday I'll be that guy that comes along and one-ups Disney someday. And maybe we've recorded this for prosperity, so that when I achieve it, I can look back at this recording and say, I knew then what Walt Disney knew when he first started Disneyland. And we can get it done. I want this idea to happen. Maybe not exactly how we talked about it, but I think there's something to it. And I challenge other people to get there before me. It's a race. I am challenging your listeners. If you're a young kid and you want to be an Imagineer, this is your moment.
Do it.
Figure it out.
Yeah. I love it. Don't limit your potential. Anybody. Hey, Joel, thanks again so much for joining us. I look forward to putting this out. I'm going to share all your information. What's the best place for people to see your art and to see your work?
Wish Pictures with an S.com. So wish, like you're wishing upon a star, wishpictures.com, and you'll see my bio on there, which pretty much shows most of my life, how I got to where I am now, although there's about 7 years missing out of there. I haven't had time to really update it, but there. I'm also under Instagram, Joel Christopher Payne, and I am Santa. So you can go to TikTok and listen to me, watch my fun videos at Hipster St. Nick on TikTok, and I've got 93,000 followers.
Holy cow.
In just a handful of just a few moments, because I just love entertaining people, and I'm trying to do an origin story for Santa called The Elf King. And if you go to theelfking.com, I've got some products on there, but I'm partnered with the Mandalorian stunt team. Maybe some of your Disney people know about that. Have you ever heard of Mandalorians? Maybe not. Yeah. I don't know. Well, I'm working with Turbo Panda Productions, which majority of their stunt guys work on that show, as well as a lot of other shows. And I've written an origin story for Santa that will answer all questions that a child ever had about Santa Claus and how he became the Santa. And I'm working on that, try to get it up as a show. And we've got this amazing toy technology, maybe little elves that will be
I'm going to check that. I actually saw a little of that earlier today. I'm going to check that out. I'm kind of known as the gift giver Santa Claus in my family. So that's really cool.
I have just been nominated for a very prestigious award, the
Yeah.
Hollywood Music and Media Awards, the HMMA Awards, which is the equivalent of the Grammys for the movie and television business, basically music connected to media.
Yeah.
And that show is going to be on streaming in November, because we got the COVID restrictions, so we can't do it in Hollywood like we normally do. My song "Santa Lives in You," which you can get on iTunes and Amazon and Spotify right now, got nominated, and I beat out a few hundred people in my category. And that's going to be connected to our show, but it was written for #BlessTheMovie, where I play Santa, and it's coming out next Christmas. So that's another movie to look for that I'm in. Aside from being an artist, I also act and sing and do a whole bunch of different things. So don't limit yourself, kids.
That's right. Hey, thanks again for joining us. Really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on. It's been a blast.
All right. Take care.
Wow, that was a great interview with Joel. What do you think, Jeff?
It was really great to sit down with him, or to let him pace with us while he gave so much insight to the Imagineering process that, as someone, like you said, he consulted with them, did so many interesting attractions that I loved. And he just had such a passion for the Walt method and how they cultivate those designs. And I love the aspect of sitting in the 3 different chairs in Walt's office, the blue sky, the practical, and the spoiler. That just really resonated with me.
Yeah, I'm really glad we got that input about the 3 chairs. And I can see that would be realistic when Imagineering is actually creating something, because ultimately you can't just really throw it out there, which really makes you wonder, how much of that do they have now? The NBA experience lasted what, 9 months or so?
If that,
I don't know how
yeah.
long it was. Yeah, so what kind of, I wonder how hard they're applying that today. But as far as this show goes, I like his idea that we should apply that. However, I think if we truly applied 3 chairs up to that 3rd chair, I'm not sure if we could do things every single week. You know what I mean?
It might be tough
Yeah.
for us to do there, but at least
Yeah.
to kind of keep those chairs. And I do like the idea, have a 1-line pitch. And I feel like mine
Yes.
did it. Bring Broadway to Disney Springs, and I try to approach it with the result of looking at it from, you have your shopping district, your food district, and then you have your entertainment district. So I was trying to apply some level of design there and consider the space. I like your idea. I think it just might need a little bit more work in the sense of creating a simulated experience and like I said, I'm actually the guy you need to be building that space for.
Yeah.
Because I'm the guy who says, I don't want to go on the cruise. You've got to design something that says, go in this building, and then when you leave this building, you're going to want to go on that cruise.
Yeah, I think I spent the wrong portion of my pitch explaining why it was needed versus just saying what it was. And he was absolutely right to gong me on that. And I think he was right too of is this really needed? How much of a population would something like that apply to? Because you could really go crazy with some ideas. I had a lot of ideas that I wanted to express, and we won't worry about that for this show. But in doing something like that, Disney would, whether it be from the Disney Cruise Line sharing money with the parks or whoever is going to fund this, that's a lot of upfront capital to basically attract, I don't know how many people. The basic idea was really, though, is to have a central place where people already are, and then sort of pique their curiosity and then try that next big purchase, right? So the Disney Cruise Line doesn't have that as much as in one location as they do online and things like that. I just always wondered what it would be like to have that on a site. And if you think about it, like Royal Caribbean, Carnival Cruises, they don't have anything like that at all. And if Disney had that one little kick, one little something, even if it's not, a gigantic building, what could that turn into long term for something that has to be funded?
I know the people that go on Disney cruises, the people that love it, there are people that are more cruise fans than they are parks fans.
Yeah.
And it's just a different orbit. Now, sometimes you'll be in a shared orbit, but it's interesting. But I was very glad to have Joel's his input
onto the basically his take on whether or not something like that should even be pitched. So I knew it was coming, and I'm glad he did that. And I was so glad to have him on this show. I'd love to have him back. And I was really piqued by his idea of this holodeck, or whatever you would call it in the Disney version. And that was so on my mind. I didn't know how to beat that. It is very fanciful, and I don't know how feasible something like that is, honestly. We're probably close to that, and he believes we're close to it. We might be, but I really think that if we're getting close to that, Disney needs to be on that hot and heavy, because I think there'll be a lot of competition across the world and getting something like that out there.
I'm going to go ahead and level with you. My original idea, I liked my idea, and I feel like I was really approaching it from maybe a market need or a way to properly apply or cross-pollinate the different Disney brands. But I did have an original concept for that space where it would be like DisneyQuest Plus, and part of it would be there would be a standard Omnimover ride vehicle, and then you would have digitally designed your ride experience, and then the ride vehicle would twist and turn in one of those projected room. The projections would be along the entire ride track, and that experience that you created, whether it's a Wild West one or outer space, and you could add different elements, and the ride vehicle maybe is even on one of those crazy KUKA arms. And then I'm thinking, well, this is now just becoming a big theme park experience as well. And
that's an Epcot attraction.
Yeah, that's actually like a big Epcot e-ticket. So I dialed back from that and I went Broadway.
Yeah, I almost let's recreate mannequins. Let's build that again. I miss mannequins.
Listen,
but the Disney Space.
I thought you were going to do a Walt or a Disney World museum. That's what I thought you were going to.
Yeah, some people have actually suggested that on Twitter before. I've read that, and that's probably a really good idea. Although I don't know how much of a general population would buy into that, but I would certainly like to see it. The challenge with DisneyQuest is just such a gigantic space. What do you really do with it? It's really, really tough. But I think when I heard the whole, I'm not going to call it the holodeck because I don't want to really copy Star Trek. Disney would have to do something really unique to themselves. But it made me wonder what's really going on with this Epcot's Play Pavilion, and what kind of potential does it have? Because they showed us a little bit about what it's going to be, but they actually made a statement in their D23 pitch, and Zach Ridley says, "This innovative new pavilion is beyond anything we've ever created and is completely unique to Epcot." And it really just kind of made me step back and wonder, is this going to be kind of that's a beginning of that type of space of what Joel was thinking about, and then later on get better and better and better and use that as a platform to do what he was creating, that digital immersive entirety space.
Well, the Cranium Command Theater still exists. The physical spaces for the Body Wars ride systems are there, but they, I believe, have cannibalized all of the ride vehicles for the different Star Tours simulators. Yeah. So I don't think they're going to open it with any particular big flashy attractions, but I guess they're going to try to make this a really interesting interactive spot.
Right. I mean, they have a lot of space where the simulators were to create this walk-in immersive environment where you're sort of lost in the world. So who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
So what's up next on our next Disney Space, Mark?
Since I think we're coming up on a holiday here, we're coming up on Halloween, occasionally you'll see Disney World and Disneyland do special types of overlays on their attractions for Christmas, such as the Jingle Cruise at Disneyland, and also at Cars Land, they sort of do a Halloween type of thing. And then at Walt Disney World, they'll do the Country Bear Holiday Hoedown.
Until 2006, and they pull the rug out from that.
Yeah, so let's do a Halloween special.
So it's a Halloween special.
Pick your own Disney Space.
Anybody can pick a Disney Space.
Actually, DisneySpaces, pick several.
Several?
Several. And so let's see how we can do a Halloween type of overlay theme and spook the place up a little bit. Something that's never been done before.
So again, to clarify, it's similar to how in Disneyland they can turn the Haunted Mansion into a Nightmare Before Christmas experience, but then when they're done with it, they can turn it right back, and you never knew the difference.
Right. The Great Pumpkin on Spaceship Earth. We'll just start
Hey,
there.
I like that.
All right, the DisneySpace Halloween special. That's what we're going to do.
All right, be on the lookout for that very soon. Well, hey, that's another great show with DisneySpace. And Mark, you want them to check out Joel's website?
Yeah, please go to wishpictures.com and look at all of Joel's amazing paintings. Each one of these are for sale. He has a lot of things that have a holiday theme to it, a lot of things that have a Disneyland theme to it. A lot of this is background art, and a lot of it, some of it is also not associated with the Disney, but they're beautiful, beautiful paintings. Look through them, browse them, consider buying them, consider them for gifts. But Joel is an amazing painter. I really, really want you to look at some of his art. And we thank him again for coming on the show.
Absolutely. Mark, looking forward to the next show, buddy.
All right. Crazy.